I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change.
Federal officials have begun a major investigation into whether someone or many people benefited financially from the evil done to the country last Tuesday. Not long before the attacks occurred, there were some financial transactions in the stock market that may indicate knowledge of the attack before it began. ABC's Antonio Mora is here. Whether they ever get to, if they ever get to the bottom of it, it will be astonishing.
Astonishing, no question, Peter. What many Wall Street analysts believe is that the terrorists made bets that a number of stocks would see their prices fall. They did so by buying what are called puts. If you bet right, the rewards can be huge. The risks are also huge, unless, of course, you know something bad is going to happen to the company you're betting against.
This could very well be insider trading at the worst, most horrific, most evil use you've ever seen in your entire life.
One example, United Airlines. The Thursday before the attack, more than 2,000 contracts betting that the stock would go down were purchased. 90 times more in one day than in 3 weeks. When the markets reopened, United's stock dropped. The price of the contracts soared, and someone may have made a lot of money fast.
$180,000 turns into $2.4 million when that plane hits the World Trade Center.
It's almost the same story with American Airlines.
That's a five-fold increase in the value of what was a $337,000 trade on Monday.
All of a sudden becomes what?
$1.8 million.
And there's much more, including an extraordinarily high number of bets against Morgan Stanley and Marsh & McLennan, two of the World Trade Center's biggest tenants.
Could this be a coincidence? This would be one of the most extraordinary coincidences in the history of mankind if it was a coincidence.
It is absolutely unprecedented to see cases of insider trading covering the entire world, from Japan to the United States and North America to Europe.
ABC News has now learned that the Chicago Board of Options Exchange launched their investigation into the unusual trading last week. That may have given them enough time to stop anyone from profiting from death here in the U.S. It may also give investigators, Peter, a hot trail that might lead them to the terrorists.
Thanks very much. As a reminder of the complications here, though, the Secretary of the Treasury said today of this investigation, you've got to go through 10 veils before you get to the real source.
Yep.
Thanks, Antonio.
Here's what we're not going to do at the Listening Post with our story on the conspiracy theories swirling around 9/11. We're not going to examine the theories or assess their validity. What we're interested in is where the media comes into play on a story like this. Why do more and more people doubt the official version of events put out by the U.S. government and delivered to you by the mainstream media? And what does the growth in the conspiracy industry say about the faith, or lack of it, that people have in the media?
Try it yourself. Just search the internet for 9/11 and conspiracy theory. In less than a second, we got more than 30 million results. Links to personal sites, articles, videos, and books. The videos explore theories that range from there were no planes involved on 9/11, just holograms that looked like planes, to the idea that Washington chose not to prevent the attacks because it wanted a pretext to go to war. And there are plenty of believers out there. A recent poll found 41% of Pakistanis say Arabs did not carry out the 9/11 attacks. Another poll concluded 45% of British Muslims say the attacks were a conspiracy involving the US and Israel. Many of those polled were of Arab descent.
Conspiracy theory is a part and parcel of the culture, our culture, Arabic culture, that there is always a conspiracy theory. It has been going on, and as I said, the media in the last 50 years.
The Arab world is awash with conspiracy theories. Many of them center on Israel. It's been that way ever since the attacks. The Arab culture's penchant for conspiracies, which is born in the people's distrust of official media, has been debated on channels like Al Arabiya.
طيب أسامة بن لادن والقاعدة وين تضعينهم من هذه المعادلة؟
أسامة بن لادن هل يستطيع أن ينفذ مخطط كبير هذا في أعظم دولة في العالم؟
It took Americans much longer to grow suspicious of what they were told about 9/11. But the doubts are growing, partially because of independent films like Loose Change. The low-budget production has been Google Video's #1 download for much of the last year. Cobbled together on a computer by 3 young Americans, Loose Change is a clever piece of work that provides one-stop shopping for millions of suspicious minds.
Well, I think Loose Change, for the first time, kind of put together in one kind of audio-visual message all the reasons why we should be skeptical of, scientifically skeptical of the official narrative of 9/11. So it dealt with issues like the World Trade Center collapses, it dealt with the Pentagon crash, quite fast, hard images, which are supposed to be giving you facts which contradict everything that we're being told. And I think it was, in that sense, is very popular because people were looking for answers.
There's a paucity of real information, and people know that. There's a vacuum, and the vacuum is being filled by conspiracy theories.
Rory O'Connor is a New Yorker who produced a film called 9/11, Press for Truth. The film follows 9/11 widows who question what their government is telling them. O'Connor's take on mainstream media, it did some decent reporting on 9/11, but came up short in one critical respect: context.
Very specific sites from mainstream organizations, from the BBC to Newsweek to the New York Times. So the mainstream media did report many of the salient facts, but what they failed to do was to connect the dots. What they failed to do is take the important points and put them on page A1 rather than bury them in the last paragraph on page B16.
Whether governments like it or not, when people don't trust the media, when they don't trust the messenger, they tend to disbelieve what their governments are telling them. More than 1 in 3 Americans now say that they believe that the Bush administration either helped plan the attacks or chose to do nothing to prevent them from occurring. It's as though Americans are thinking, as post-9/11 events unfold, if their government was capable of lying about Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, and the reasons to go to war, and the media failed to report that at the time, then what else is possible?
So then these people then say, well, what about 9/11? You know, we've seen some discrepancies, some anomalies there. What if they're lying about this? What if the whole thing is untrue? There comes a point, I think, when people start to feel that they're living in a hyper-reality that is constructed completely from the images and sounds that they hear from the radio and the television. And they start to think, well, I can't trust anything that this state-owned media or the state-endorsed media is telling me.
So they look elsewhere, which means turning to the medium that sees itself as the natural heir to the mainstream media, the internet.
Without that, the information would not have got out there because this is the new alternative way of communicating outside of the mass media spectrum. This is why people turn to the internet to get their alternative, because it's the only kind of decentered, decentralized, but international level forum where you can actually freely post information. You're not going to be censored.
The US government tried to ignore 9/11 conspiracy theories, hoping they would go away. That failed to work, so the State Department has posted its own Let's Debunk the 9/11 Conspiracy Theories webpage.
American conspiracy theorists say that's a clear indication that their government has something to hide. But then they would say that, wouldn't they?
Here's what our Global Village Voices had to say about conspiracy theories and the media.
I'm finding it increasingly difficult these days to have intelligent conversations with other Muslim or Arab people that I know, or just friends of mine about 9/11 without conspiracy theories coming up. You watch one documentary or get one stupid emails that I'm still getting these forwards that 9/11 was conducted by the Jews, or 9/11 was an inside plot, or 9/11 was conducted by a bunch of reality show contestants pissed off that they didn't win the $1 million. I mean, you see one documentary or read one stupid email and suddenly you're specialists on how buildings are supposed to look like when planes fly into them, or how bombs are supposed to ignite. How many buildings have you seen with planes flying into them? Don't answer that. Okay, there is a bit of a conspiracy, I admit. The Bush administration sort of knew about it. I mean, there's your conspiracy, right? And did they hear about it and neglect it, or did they just use it as a ploy to create an enemy because